And then we will move on to our next file. So let's go into our analyzer raw data file. And the next file that we're going to manipulate is our PM2.5 data file. So what do I do first? I make a copy. So let's make a copy of that original file. So copy and paste into my Toolbox import files. And let's change the name again so I don't get confused on what file I'm manipulating. Okay, I'm in the right folder. I've got my original file here. Everything looks good. So let's go ahead and open up this file. So now when I double click on this file and attempt to open it, I get this message box. And it says, I don't know what this file is. And I say, okay, it's a .dat file. And .dat files, when they come off of data loggers or analyzers, are usually just text files in disguise. So basically what we need to do is just say cancel on this message box. So say cancel that. And let's tell our computer that this is a text file. So the way to tell your computer that it's a text file is to change that DAT extension to a .txt. So we're going to rename it. And what we have to do is we have to highlight this DAT area and type over it. So we're going to just type over txt. And then it says, are you sure you want to do that? And I say, yeah, I want to do that because this is my copy of my file. This is not my original. So if I mess it up, everything will be fine because this is just a copy of my file. So I say, yeah, let's go ahead and change it. So now we have a txt file. Let's see if this one opens. So let's double click on it. And now it opens up. So one thing to notice here that's really important is there is no comma delimiters. So this is not a comma delimited file. So what's separating these columns is actually a space and not a comma. So what does that mean? That means that we cannot import this file into the toolbox as is. The easiest way to get this into a file that can be imported into the toolbox is to import this file into a spreadsheet. So let's go ahead and do that. And then once it's imported into a spreadsheet, then we can run through the checklist for spreadsheet files. So to do that, I'm going to close it. And then I'm going to go ahead and open up Microsoft Excel. Okay, here's something to notice. I'm using Microsoft Excel 2013. Happen to have 2016, and you need to get a file imported into Excel, let us know and we can set up a GoToWebinar or a GoToMeeting session, and I can step you through the process. So Excel 2013, we're going to do a blank workbook. And the way to import data into a spreadsheet in this version of Excel is to go to the data option up here in the menu. So you go data. Then what we want to do is we want to do from text in the ribbon. So click on from text. And then it says, what file do you want to import? So let's go ahead and find the file on my computer that I need to import into the spreadsheet. So it was on my desktop, and it was in my Toolbox import files folder, and it's this manipulated site pm25.txt file. So then you click import, and what that does is it brings up this wizard that has 3 different steps to it. So the first thing in this import wizard is you need to choose the file type. So we know it's delimited because remember it was a space delimited file. Most of the files that you're going to be importing from a data logger or an analyzer are delimited. They're not fixed width. So we need to change that. So first we need to change this to delimited. And then it gives you the option of where do you want to start the import at. So notice this first row here, it's got some extraneous text that I don't need. I want my column names to be first. So I'm going to start with import at row 2. So we need to change this to import at row 2. And then my data does have headers, because here's the headers. See the output ID, serial date, time. So what we need to check this box that says my data has headers. So once I've made all of those changes, I click next, and that's going to open the next screen of the wizard. Okay, so in this next screen of the wizard, what it needs you to do is select what kind of delimiters are in your particular file. And I think by default, it always checks off tab. So you want to uncheck tab first. And then in this data preview pane, this is really interesting, at least it is to me as a data nerd, is that when you change these delimiters, this changes. So once you have the right delimiter, so let's say I need to change this to space because mine was space delimited, it puts in these column breaks. So you can see that you are right. It is a space delimited file. If you don't see your delimiter, like it has some other delimiter, you can use this other box and you can type in your delimiter. An example of that would be like if you downloaded data from AQS. If you're not familiar with AQS, it's always in pipe delimited format. So if you downloaded data from AQS, you want to check other, and then you would want to put in the delimiter of pipe here. And a pipe delimiter is above your backslash key on your keyboard. So if you press shift and your backslash key, you'll type in the pipe delimiter. But my particular file is space delimited. So I check off space. And when I do that, so I'm going to uncheck it once here. When I do that, watch what happens to this little thing that says treat consecutive delimiters as 1. So I do that, and it by default it checks that off. Now that's a problem if you have missing column names, because what will happen is it will assign the column names to the wrong columns if you particularly have a column name that's missing. So if that's the case, you don't want that checked off. So let's look at it in this particular file. Let's scroll to the right. So if I scroll to the right, notice that we have a missing column name here. So what happened here is that these all got shifted to the left. So serial date is actually where the year should be. So that's wrong. So I need to uncheck that treat consecutive delimiters as 1. So watch what happens when I do that in the data preview pane. Okay, so see, now this is correct. The year doesn't have a column name and everything is shifted to the right. And we have this last one that has the correct column at the very end. There's no missing column names. So that's something to notice and make sure that Excel is doing what you want it to do. So after you make sure that the data preview pane looks good, go ahead and click next, and that's going to bring up the next screen of the wizard. So this is the last screen of the wizard, step 3 of 3. And what you want to do here is just check that the column date formats in general. Actually, I mean, by default, that's what the spreadsheet does, is it uses the column date format of general. And for now, that's what we recommend doing. Unless you have some specific reason, otherwise, just leave it as general. So there's nothing to do in this particular screen, and we could just click finish. So I do that, and then it says, where do you want me to put this? So by default, it goes into the first cell in the worksheet, which is A1, and that's what you want. So you go ahead and click OK. And now the file has been imported into spreadsheet format, which is a lot easier to look at compared to the space delimited text file we were looking at. So now let's go ahead and run through the checklist of this particular data file. So let's find where this is in the notes. So the first item in the checklist is the file name extension .xls or .xls. Actually, I haven't saved the file yet, so I don't have a file name extension. So I should do that. So let's save this file. Let's do a save. And we're going to put it in the Toolbox Import Files folder. And I'm just going to name it Manipulated. Actually, I can't name it Manipulated because I already have a file named Manipulated, and that would be very confusing. So let's change it to Converted. And let's save it. And now we can take a look at the checklist and make sure that the file name is correct. So the file name extension is .xls or .xlsx. That is correct. The file name extension is .xlsx, so I can check that off in my checklist. And then it says column names for each column in row 1. It does have column names, but notice we're missing the column name for year. So we need to fill that in, so I'm not going to check that off just yet until we get that filled in. Data begins in row 2, that's correct. That's where my data starts. No blank rows. In the spreadsheet, where you want to make sure that there's no blank rows is in between the rows. So if there was a big space here that was just a blank row, that would be a problem. So let's scroll and make sure we don't have any of that. So we don't have any of that, so we're good, and we can check that off. In order from oldest to newest. Okay, so this is serial date. So remember, 5 means January 5th, and the bottom is January 19th, so we're oldest to newest. We're good with that. Okay. Oh, did I skip that? I did. Contains complete dates in common date format or serial date format. So yeah, it's in serial date format, and like I said, serial date format is acceptable in the toolbox. So we said oldest to newest. Known and logged in your database logbook number of records. I don't know the number of records yet, so I leave that unchecked for now. And I have a backup copy saved elsewhere. That's true. My original file is safely in my Analyzer raw data files folder, so I can manipulate and not worry about it. Add a column name. So I need to go in here and add a column name. So this is the year column, so I just need to type that, and then I could check that off my checklist. Logbook number of records. So I need to know how many number of records are in this file. So I scroll to the very bottom, and there's 335 total rows, but remember one of the rows was the column names. So in terms of data records, there's a total of 334. So I write in my logbook, I write down, this is my file name, converted site, S98P25 XLSX. I write down there's a total of 334 records. I write down that the date started on January 5th at 8 a.m. and it ended at January 19th at 7 a.m. And in my imaginary sampler manual, it tells me that those times are start times. So I write down that the times are start times. So what that means is that 8 o'clock means that is the hourly data from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, because this is the start time. And that's in contrast to the other file I showed you, which was in end times. And I also write down that my dates are in serial date format. And I write down my units of my PM 2.5 data. So I write down that my units are micrograms per cubic meter. And I record all that in my logbook, and then I save my file. And now that file is ready to be imported.